Yarden Lewis sat in his office staring at the latest batch of complaints. Sloppy service. Unhappy employees. A high turnover rate at some locations. It had been 10 years since he bought the chain of home improvement stores, turning it into a profitable business. But lately things felt off. Numbers looked good on paper, but the feedback from customers and employees told a different story. His district manager, Greg, always assured him that things were running smoothly, but Yarden wasn't convinced. He had built his company with the belief that employees were the backbone of the business. If they weren't happy, the company would crumble from the inside out. Frustrated with the vague reports and endless excuses, he made a decision. He needed to see things for himself. The next morning, Yarden transformed his appearance. His usually short, well-groomed brown hair was now hidden under a worn-out cap. He let his beard grow out a bit, threw on a pair of thick glasses, and wore a faded uniform. He looked nothing like the corporate CEO he was. No one in the stores had ever met him personally. He had always managed things from a distance, trusting his managerial team. He applied as a new janitor at one of his struggling locations, a store known for its high employee turnover and poor customer service. Posing as Dale, he was quickly hired. They were desperate for workers. On his first day, the store's manager, Rick, barely acknowledged him. "Just mop the floors, clean spills, and don't get in the way," Rick muttered, handing him a worn-out mop. He didn't bother introducing him to the team. Yarden got to work, moving through the aisles, taking in everything. Employees looked exhausted. Customers struggled to find help. The few workers on the floor avoided eye contact, clearly afraid of something. As he cleaned near the break room, he overheard a conversation between two cashiers. "Rick cut my hours again," one of them whispered. "I can barely afford rent." "He does it on purpose," the other replied. "He gives more shifts to his favorites, especially the ones who don't question him." Yarden clenched his jaw. This wasn't just a failing store, it was a toxic work environment. Later that evening, as he struggled to carry a heavy trash bag outside, an older janitor approached him. "Here, let me help you with that," the man said, taking the bag from him with ease. Yarden nodded, grateful. "Thanks. First day's a bit rough." The janitor chuckled. "Yeah, this place isn't easy. Name's Alonzo. Been working here for 8 years. 8 years? That was rare in a store with high turnover." "You like it here?" Yarden asked, genuinely curious. Alonzo hesitated, then sighed. "I like the work, but management, they don't care about us. Rick, he's the worst. Picks favorites, yells at people for no reason. But I just keep my head down and do my job." Yarden noticed the exhaustion in Alonzo's eyes. The man had probably seen workers come and go, yet he stayed. "Why do you stay?" Alonzo smiled faintly. "Got a daughter in college. Need the health insurance. Besides, someone's got to keep this place clean." Yarden felt a pang of guilt. He had no idea his employees were dealing with this. The next day, Rick's behavior was on full display. He berated a cashier in front of customers, ignored a customer who needed help, and spent most of his time in his office, leaving the rest of the team scrambling. Yarden watched as Alonzo stepped in to help a struggling worker without being asked. The man didn't just clean, he supported the team in ways management never did. By the end of the shift, Yarden sat in the break room exhausted. Alonzo walked in and dropped a sandwich in front of him. "You didn't take a break. Eat." Yarden blinked. "You didn't have to." "Yeah, I did," Alonzo interrupted. "You remind me of my nephew. Always working too hard. Take care of yourself, man." Yarden stared at the sandwich, overwhelmed by the simple kindness. That night, as he drove home, he made up his mind. The problem wasn't just poor management. It was a culture of fear and favoritism. And it was time to fix it, starting with Rick. The store's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting a dull glow over the aisles. Yarden moved through the space with his mop, but his focus wasn't on the floors, it was on the employees. The tension was thick enough to weigh on his chest. Workers moved quickly, heads down, avoiding unnecessary interaction. The few that did speak to each other kept their voices low, as if afraid of being overheard. Rick, the store manager, stalked through the aisles, stopping occasionally to snap at an employee or sigh dramatically when something wasn't to his liking. Yarden watched as a young stalker, barely out of high school, stacked boxes in one of the aisles. Rick hovered behind him, arms crossed. The boy fumbled, knocking over a can of paint. It hit the floor with a dull thud, the lid popping off slightly, leaking a slow trickle of white paint onto the tile. Rick's voice cut through the air. "You paying for that? Or do I take it out of your hours?" The stalker's face went pale. He scrambled to pick up the can, hands shaking. "I am sorry, I'll clean it up." Rick didn't move. "Yeah, you will. And maybe next time you won't be such a screw-up." Yarden's grip tightened on the mop handle. He forced himself to keep his expression neutral. Confronting Rick now wouldn't solve anything. He needed to see just how deep this ran. Later that afternoon, while emptying trash near the stockroom, he overheard Rick on the phone. "Yeah, cut their hours again. If they don't like it, they can leave. Plenty of people need jobs." A pause. "No, I don't care. They're replaceable." Yarden's stomach twisted. The way Rick spoke about his employees like they were nothing more than numbers made his blood boil. That evening, as the store neared closing, Yarden found himself outside by the dumpsters, tossing another heavy bag inside. Alonzo was there too, wiping his hands on a rag. "You seen enough yet?" Yarden blinked. "What do you mean?" Alonzo gave him a knowing look. "You're not some regular guy looking for a janitor job. You pay too much attention. You listen more than you talk." Yarden hesitated. "And what do you think I'm here for?" Alonzo shrugged. "Figuring out if this place is as bad as it seems." Yarden didn't confirm or deny it. Instead, he sighed. "Why do people put up with it?" Alonzo leaned against the wall, his face thoughtful. "People need jobs. They don't always have the luxury of walking away. Rick knows that. He uses it." Yarden nodded. He had enough. Tomorrow, things would change. Yarden arrived at the store the next morning with a sense of finality. He had seen enough. Everything he had witnessed pointed to a leadership failure, not just from Rick but from the entire structure that allowed someone like him to thrive. Today, that changed. The employees deserved better, and he wasn't going to delay any longer. Rick was already in the office when Yarden walked in. The usual dismissiveness was there, but Yarden ignored it. He had something planned. Moving through the store, he sought out Alonzo, who was already wiping down the break room tables. Yarden approached with purpose. "Come with me," he said, his voice lower than usual. Alonzo glanced up, setting the rag down. "Something wrong?" "Not for us," Yarden replied. Alonzo followed without question, his steps steady as Yarden led him toward the front of the store. The employees were scattered across the aisles, some helping customers, others stocking shelves. But when Yarden stepped up onto a low platform near the registers, people started noticing. Conversations slowed, glances were exchanged. Rick emerged from his office, irritation clear on his face as he strode forward. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Yarden removed his cap and glasses, standing taller. "I'm making things right." Confusion flickered across Rick's features before realization hit. His face drained of color. Around them, employees straightened, eyes widening as they recognized the man who had been scrubbing floors just yesterday. Yarden let the silence settle before speaking. "I own this company. And for the past few days, I've been working here, watching, listening." His gaze hardened as it landed on Rick. "I've seen how you treat people. The way you cut hours unfairly, how you talk to employees like they're disposable. How you've created a culture of fear instead of leadership." Rick's mouth opened, then closed. His usual arrogance wavered. "You're done," Yarden cut him off. "Effective immediately, you're no longer employed here." Gasps rippled through the employees. Some exchanged looks of disbelief, others barely concealed their relief. Rick sputtered, searching for something to grasp onto. You can't just walk in here and—" "I can," Yarden interrupted. "And I just did." Rick turned to the employees as if expecting someone to defend him. No one spoke. The silence was damning. Security, already alerted by Yarden earlier that morning, arrived at the front entrance. Rick's face twisted, but he said nothing as they escorted him out. When the doors shut behind him, Yarden turned back to the employees. "Things changed today. No more favoritism, no more toxic leadership. Every single person here deserves respect and fair treatment." He glanced at Alonzo, who had remained quiet through it all. "And some of you deserve a lot more than you've been given." Alonzo frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "You've been holding this store together. I saw it firsthand. You don't just do your job, you help everyone." Yarden's voice was steady. "That kind of dedication should be recognized." Alonzo blinked, clearly unsure where this was going. "You're the new store manager," Yarden announced. A hushed murmur swept through the employees. Alonzo's hands curled into fists at his sides, his jaw tightening. "I what? You've been here for years. You know this store better than anyone. And more importantly, you treat people with respect." Yarden's expression softened. "That's the kind of leadership this place needs." Alonzo exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "I've never run a store before. You've been running it in everything but title," Yarden countered. "I'll make sure you have the support you need, but I know you're the right person for this." The weight of the moment settled on Alonzo's shoulders. He looked around at the employees, at the faces that had endured years under poor leadership. Slowly he nodded. "All right." A round of scattered applause broke out. Employees exchanged relieved glances, some even smiling for the first time in what seemed like forever. Yarden wasn't finished. "And for the rest of you, things are going to change. I'm implementing a direct feedback system so employees can report issues without fear. Wages and scheduling practices will be reviewed immediately. No one here should be struggling just to get by while working full-time." The tension in the store lifted, replaced by something new: hope. As the employees slowly returned to their tasks, Alonzo remained standing near Yarden. His voice was quieter now. "Why did you do this?" "Because I needed to see the truth," Yarden admitted. "And because people like you deserve better." Alonzo studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Then let's make this place what it should be." Yarden extended a hand. Alonzo took it, shaking firmly. The changes had only just begun, but for the first time in a long time, this store had a future worth believing in. Yarden spent the next few days at the store, ensuring the transition was handled properly. He met with the employees individually, getting their honest feedback now that the fear of retaliation was gone. Some were hesitant at first, but as the changes became real, their trust in him grew. With Rick gone, the atmosphere in the store shifted. Employees no longer flinched when they saw management approaching. Conversations that had once been whispered now took place openly. It was as if a weight had been lifted off the entire team. Alonzo settled into his new role with quiet determination. He wasn't the type to make grand speeches or demand authority, but his presence alone commanded respect. He listened more than he talked, asked questions instead of barking orders, and took the time to understand the challenges each worker faced. One evening, as the store was closing, Yarden found Alonzo in the back office, his hands resting on a stack of paperwork. The desk was cluttered with reports, schedules, and notes from employees. "You all right?" Yarden asked. Alonzo glanced up, exhaling through his nose. "It's a lot. I never realized how much went on behind the scenes." "You'll get the hang of it," Yarden assured him. "You already know the people. That's more important than any spreadsheet." Alonzo tapped a finger on the desk. "Scheduling's a mess. Some of these folks have been struggling for months because of the way hours were handed out." "I figured," Yarden said. "What's your plan?" Alonzo pushed the papers aside. "First, I'm fixing the rotation. No more favoritism. Everybody gets fair hours based on their needs and availability. Second, I'm setting up a proper training system. Half the problems here come from people being thrown onto the floor without knowing what they're doing." Yarden nodded. "Sounds like you're already making it better." Alonzo leaned back in his chair. "It's gonna take time. People don't trust change right away." "They'll trust you," Yarden said simply. Alonzo met his gaze, then gave a slow nod. "Then I better not let them down." As the weeks passed, the store transformed. Customers noticed the difference almost immediately. Shelves were stocked properly, employees were engaged, and the overall energy of the store shifted from tense to welcoming. One afternoon, Yarden walked through the aisles, observing the changes in real time. A customer approached a cashier with a question, and instead of looking around nervously, the employee confidently provided an answer. A group of stockers worked together efficiently, no longer afraid of being reprimanded for small mistakes. The biggest shift, however, was in Alonzo. He carried himself differently now, not with arrogance, but with a quiet assurance that came from knowing he had the support of his team. He wasn't just managing the store, he was leading it. Yarden watched as Alonzo checked in with a young employee near the paint section. The worker was carefully organizing cans, and when Alonzo asked how they were adjusting to the new system, the kid answered with genuine enthusiasm. After the conversation ended, Yarden approached. "He looks up to you." Alonzo crossed his arms. "Just trying to make sure people feel like they matter." "They do," Yarden said. And you're proving that every day. Alonzo shook his head slightly. Never thought I'd be in this position. You earned it, Yarden replied. And this store is better because of it. Alonzo exhaled, scanning the busy aisles. Still a lot of work to do. There always will be, Yarden said. But at least now it's work that means something. Alonzo nodded, then turned back to the floor, already focused on the next challenge. Yarden didn't need to oversee things anymore. The store was in good hands. Yarden returned to the store 2 months later, stepping inside without the disguise this time. The moment he walked through the automatic doors, he noticed the changes immediately. The air felt different, lighter, more energized. Employees moved with purpose, engaging with customers instead of avoiding them. There was no longer that underlying tension in their movements. He walked past the registers, nodding at a cashier who greeted him with a genuine smile. That alone was proof of progress. Before, most of them barely looked up, weighed down by the toxic environment Rick had created. Now, they seemed like they actually wanted to be here. As he moved toward the back, he spotted Alonzo near the receiving area, clipboard in hand. He was speaking with a younger employee, pointing at a newly organized shelving system. The kid was nodding, taking notes, clearly engaged in what was being explained. Yarden waited until the conversation wrapped up before stepping closer. Alonzo turned, and for a brief moment, his expression was unreadable. Then, recognition settled in and he gave a single nod. Didn't think you'd be back so soon, Alonzo said. Just wanted to see how things were going. Alonzo exhaled, glancing around. Well, no one's quitting every other week anymore, so that's something. Yarden chuckled. I'll take that as a good sign. Alonzo set the clipboard down, crossing his arms. We've been making progress. Fixed the scheduling issues. Cleaned up the mess Rick left behind. Took a while to get people to believe things were actually changing, but once they saw it, they started buying in. Yarden motioned toward the shelves. Looks like you made some adjustments back here too. Had to, Alonzo said. The way things were organized before was a disaster. Stockers were wasting time searching for inventory that should have been easy to find. We streamlined it, made sure everything's labeled and in the right place. Cuts down on wasted hours. Yarden nodded, impressed. That's the kind of thinking that keeps a store running efficiently. Alonzo glanced toward the front. Customers are noticing too. Complaints have dropped. People actually get help when they ask for it now. Yarden leaned against the nearby shelving unit. And how about you? How's the transition been? Alonzo was silent for a moment, then shrugged. Not gonna lie, it's been an adjustment. Going from pushing a mop to running the place isn't exactly a small jump. But I had people backing me up. The team wants this to work, so that makes it easier. Yarden studied him for a moment. You don't regret taking the job, do you? Alonzo shook his head. No regrets. Just figuring it out as I go. Yarden smiled. That's all leadership is really. Solving problems as they come. Alonzo motioned for him to follow. Come see the break room. They walked through the back hallway, passing employees who no longer looked over their shoulders like they used to. When they stepped inside the break room, Yarden immediately noticed the difference. The once dim, neglected space had been cleaned up. The old, wobbly chairs were replaced, a fresh coat of paint covered the walls, and a bulletin board displayed updated schedules and employee recognition notes. Yarden nodded toward it. This new? Yeah, Alonzo said. Started posting shout-outs for employees who go above and beyond. Keeps morale up. Yarden scanned the board. Handwritten notes from various employees praised their co-workers for helping out, stepping in when needed, or handling difficult situations with patience. It was such a simple thing, but it spoke volumes about the culture shift. You did all this? Yarden asked. Alonzo shook his head. Nah, the team did. I just made sure they had the space to make it happen. Yarden turned to him. That's what good leadership looks like. Alonzo exhaled, running a hand over his head. Still getting used to hearing that. You should start believing it, Yarden said. Because it's true. Before Alonzo could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. A young cashier stood there, looking uncertain. Sorry to bother you, she said, glancing at Alonzo. We've got a customer at the service desk asking about a return, but it's a little complicated. Not sure what to do. Alonzo gave her a reassuring nod. I'll be right there. As she left, Yarden clapped a hand on Alonzo's shoulder. Go do your thing. I'll be around. Alonzo smirked slightly before heading toward the front. Yarden lingered in the break room for a moment, taking in the changes once more. The store wasn't just running better, it felt like a place where people actually wanted to be. And that was the real success.